we just got a preview of what Capcom Pro Tour in 2025 will look like, and I don't think anyone noticed. And if you didn't notice, I wouldn't blame you, because it was kind of unceremoniously tacked on to the end of the Street Fighter League US finals, which was amazing, by the way, an amazing show. Spoilers coming in if you haven't already heard the news, which I don't understand. This is like missing out on the Super Bowl, in my opinion, but spoilers for the next 10 seconds here. You can see here, Punk the God was the one to close out versus Team Bandits for to take home the title for Team FlyQuest, and he had these choice words after the finals concluded.
My rivalry is with the Dominican community, and I want all of them to know that they're very quiet right now, and now they know who's the best in the world, and they ain't gonna say nothing to me no more. Y'all mans is dead. I slayed him. He's done. I'm the GOAT. I don't want to hear nothing from the Dominican community no more, bro. Y'all come in my chat, y'all better worship me on Twitch. That's all I want to know. I don't hear none of y'all in this arena talking, none of that. Okay.
Rob showing a moment of genuine concern for what Punk might say next. So if you don't know, Punk the God took down Mena RD in 2 sets, 2 first of 3 sets, and then closed out for the team in the team format by winning a very close set versus Louis Mans Dalsum. And yeah, it seems like his beef wasn't with Mena RD or any of the fellow competitors. It's a beef with a handful of Twitch trolls in the DR community that harass him in his Twitch chat. So this was personal for Punk, and he ended up closing out in dominant fashion for Street Fighter League US, and Team FlyQuest will be going to Street Fighter League Worlds. But right after this, Rob quickly rushes through the announcement, because this event ran way over time, for the offline CPT events for 2025. And drum roll, please, we have a sort of similar season coming up. So we don't know the exact format, but here you can see that they announced that the tour will now start with EVO Japan rather than with EVO Vegas. So EVO Japan is usually in like April, I believe, instead of being, in the middle of August, really way late in the year. It starts with EVO Japan. Next up, we have Combo Breaker finally making its return to the CPT format. Combo Breaker is one of the best events ever. I highly recommend all people making an attempt to go to Combo Breaker. It's really good to see it back on the circuit, because I think it was the best premiere, and I have fond memories of competing in Combo Breaker as well. CEO also returns to the lineup. Then we have Blink Respawn 2025, marking its second year as a premier event. Then EVO Vegas, UFA, and EVO France. So 2 events in France back to back. And then only one specific CPT event this time, a undesignated CPT Premier Asia 2025. So 8 premier events this time. And you notice how like this CPT Premier Asia doesn't say Super Premier or anything like that. We don't know the format. We don't know if Super Premiers are making a comeback. And we don't know if there's going to be more than one qualifier or if there's a point system or not. But this is 8 premier events, similar to 8 premier events that we had in this past season that we're still looking forward to the conclusion with Capcom Cup 11 coming up. So it doesn't really seem likely to me that they're doing a full offline point system similar to what they did in years prior to COVID in like 2019 and before. I'm suspecting we're having a format similar to what we had this season. However, keep in mind, 8 premier events. At minimum, that means 8 qualifiers. If any of these qualify more people, we don't know yet. It's yet to be decided. But keep in mind now that the Street Fighter League World Championship will also qualify all the players of that team into Capcom Cup automatically, which I find very strange. I don't know what Street Fighter League has to do with Capcom Cup, but whatever team wins that, all 4 players will auto-qualify into Capcom Cup 12, and the winner of Capcom Cup 11 will also this year auto-qualify into Capcom Cup 12, which means that's already, with these 8 qualifiers plus 5 from Capcom Cup 11, that means we already have 13 qualifiers from this announcement at minimum from Capcom Cup plus offline events. Now, that to me means that the concept of the World Warrior might be taking a nerf, because right now, for this format, 10 players come from offline, and out of the 48, the other 38 players come from the World Warrior events. Well, now we have 15 already instead of just 10 from a non-World Warrior qualification. So I would suspect that they might be cutting down more on the number of people qualifying via World Warrior, either by combining regions or getting rid of the super region concept where some regions that 2 players qualify out of. So that's my suspicion in terms of how they're doing this qualification. But it's also a little weird that like there's 3 out of the 8 are EVO events. So EVO, for the first time, will be adding EVO France. EVO Japan has been running alongside EVO Vegas for a number of years now. EVO France is the first addition to having this extra third Evo, and I believe they're even going for a fourth moving Evo target to have one every quarter. A little weird that it's centralizing around Evo now. I don't know how I like this, and we're just seeing less and less variety in terms of the events that they offer here. I am once again super happy to see Combo Breaker and CEO make it. The fact that the tour started with Evo Vegas in August was ridiculous, but they kind of had to do that based on the release timing of Street Fighter 6, released later in the year. They had to have the tour start later as well, at least for the first season, but I'm happy they're trying to shift it earlier. Also, Evo Japan is starting much earlier in the year, so that's also maybe giving a hint that Elena and Season 3 might come out earlier than expected as well, considering the fact that Evo Japan is coming up rather soon. Let me get the exact date for you. Evo Japan is coming up in May 9th of 2025. So if this is going to be part of the next CPT tour season, generally by that point they have the main balance patch update for the next year out. To me, that implies that we might see Elena and Season 3 before May 9th. This is not a guarantee, but if the schedules are lining up, generally that's what that means. But once again, I'm super happy to see Combo Breaker and CEO on there. Combo Breaker has been running without the CPT boost, but it's just a fact of the post CPT reality that if you're not part of the CPT circuit, your event for Street Fighter just has far less prestige and far less entrance and international competition. Combo Breakers in the years 2017 to 2019, those 3 years when it was a premier event for the CPT circuit, had so many high-level international players present from all over the planet. A ton of Japanese players, Korean players, European players, all players from all over Asia, players from Latin America. I mean, it was just one of the events to be at, plus 24-hour venue, plus tons of casuals. It was just an amazing thing to behold. And it just quite frankly doesn't hold the weight. This is just a reality. This is not a pleasant reality, but in the post-CPT world, players tend to not travel to regional events unless they have some other qualification to be a part of it. Because I don't know, I just think the same competitive drive or the battle for glory isn't there unless it ties into something bigger like the Capcom Cup. This is just the culture that we have these days. Plus, we have all these online major tournaments. You have a major tournament every week online with Tampa Never Sleeps, which didn't exist in years past. So you can kind of satisfy that itch and get that same accolades and test your skills in that forum. Whereas previously, before these the great netcode of Street Fighter 6 and online events like TNS, you had to travel to these events. So out of necessity, you had to make it out to these regional events. That culture has it was already dying off, and then it was already being replaced with the culture of traveling for the CPT, and then COVID just killed it entirely. And so Combo Breaker survived without that. With its other amazing tournaments, people still showed up in big numbers as well to support, because it's just a great event. It's the best bang for your buck, I think, as both as a competitive player and as a more semi-competitive and casual player. 24-hour venue, tons of casuals, run really well. Combo Breaker is a tournament I would recommend to pretty much anybody, along with CEO. CEO is of that caliber as well, also has the wrestling theme to it as well. So these are the two of the events in NA that have survived this transition between COVID and not, because many events have just died off. I'm really happy to see CEO make it as well. It was really disappointing that CEO was the first big major for Street Fighter 6 when the game launched. 1,000 people entered this tournament, right when the game came out. I think this was only a handful of weeks after Street Fighter 6 dropped, if I remember correctly. Amazing event. Not part of the Capcom Pro Tour because it was before EVO, which was really disappointing to see, in my opinion. So I'm really happy it's back on there. If we compare these events, actually, like the lineup from these two different years, so 2024 versus 2025, it's very similar, but the few events did not return. So Cream City Convergence in Milwaukee, I think they're looking for a Midwest event. Unfortunately, did not make the return this year. Now it's going to Combo Breaker instead. ECT is also missing from this bracket as well. Kings of the World does not return either, and they've also gotten rid of one more CPT Capcom RAN event as well. I think the Capcom RAN events are usually like some kind of placeholder that they have for the schedule. They actually run fairly well, but generally they're trying to latch on to other organizers producing these events on their own. And instead, all this was replaced with more EVOs, which is kind of strange. But I do think that raises the stakes. For example, for Evo Japan is always kind of an afterthought because it comes at the end of the season after Capcom Cup concludes. So for example, Mena RD won Evo Japan at the tail end of season 1. It just doesn't hold the same weight as Evo Vegas did that year, right? Angry Bird won Evo Vegas. It's a Capcom Pro Tour qualifier, and it's in the middle or the beginning of the season. After Capcom Cup, generally that's considered the off season until the next CPT event begins. So EVO Japan has always been sort of I don't know, slighted by the community. Just doesn't hold the same legacy. Like, I think of Oil King. Oil King won the final Evo Japan for Street Fighter V. People forget that. I feel like I need to bring that point up more often, because it's so easy to let that slide and forget about that accomplishment for Oil King when the competition is super stacked. It just doesn't have the same reach in the Western audience. So I think adding it to the Pro Tour, that I like. Evo France, you're kind of pushing a lot, and it hasn't established itself yet. And plus, just having 3 out of the 8 events being Evo events, I think that's a little strange. I would love to see this more filled out, but it's a very similar schedule to years past. Just want to bring out for contrast, this is a step in the right direction from 2023, which was the worst season of the CPT, in my opinion, because it fumbled the bag in a huge way for supporting the launch year for Street Fighter 6. They had 3 offline premieres total. So there was Evo Vegas, not shown here. And then they only had a CPT Singapore premiere and a CPT France premiere. They didn't latch on to any other established tournaments besides Evo, which was so strange. It's like they weren't ready. It's like they forgot to do their homework or finish the project before the day was due, and they had to make some shit up when they had to announce the tour. It was very strange to me that they didn't latch onto any established events for that season whatsoever. So 2024 was a step in the right direction. 2025, I like the fact that they added Combo Breaker and CEO, but it also feels like less variety. So it's not a huge boost in a positive direction so far. We'll see with what they announce with more details for the format. But I just want to take us back also to 2019 and 2018 here, right? If we want to go back and actually look at how things used to operate, remember, look at all the premiere events. These are only premiere events. I think 2019 had, what, 15 premieres? 1, 2, 3, 4, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 premieres total, 3 of those super premieres. That was the 2019 season. 2018 had that as well, and 2017 as well. These are tournaments all over the planet, and not including all the ranking events happening all over the planet. And sometimes overlapping, right? There's more tournaments than there are weeks in the year. And this is not just the fault of Capcom Cup on its own for shifting away from having all this action for spectators and competitors. It's also the reality of the post-COVID FGC. Many of these events don't exist anymore. Final Round didn't survive COVID. NCR did not survive COVID. Mix-Up, I believe, is still around. Game Over is now Blink Respawn. Versus Fighting is around. They even had a handful of CPT ran events to pad this already packed schedule. Celtic Throwdown is no longer around. I don't know about Final Fighters in China. Southeast Asia Majors is around, which is weird because that was like a week or 2 after the CPT Singapore event. So I don't know why they didn't just do it with Southeast Asia Majors. Instead, they ran their own event in Singapore. First Attack is still around, no longer part of the CPT. Canada Cup is no longer around. I don't think EGX is around. So a lot of these events did not survive. SCR is no longer around. A lot of these events did not survive the time period between COVID and now. So it's a reality that there's less events to participate in, but also just the tour is just not the same. And that's pros and cons. Of course, I always want to give a voice to the people who say, oh, the offline tours before were the Capcom Pay Tour and it priced out a lot of competitors. That is true. I'm still hoping they find a way to balance that with having some kind of point system, maybe a two season, like break the season in half to 2 sections so you can travel less and qualify and still offer World Warrior points as well for people who aren't able to travel. Have a balance of both, because I just think as a spectator, you want the tour. That's just I just think spectators need the offline action to be attached. So we're still a far away from, like, I think the glory days of the Capcom Pro Tour. So I will wait to see more information about how the 2025 season will come to be. I'm hoping for positive developments in the format to inspire a lot of competitors to show up, travel, put on a show, and entertain the players and the audience, and keep spectators engaged with the storylines that develop throughout the season. So when it comes time to Capcom Cup, we are familiar with the players, we understand their journeys, we understand their skill level, and we respect their dedication, and we respect their skill, and we understand the stakes involved with the players involved in the finals, so that the audience is engaged and that we care and respect the players putting their work in and giving it their all to compete at the highest level. That's what I hope for. And that's all I have for this video. Let me know what you think about these offline tournaments for the 2025 season, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.